in my small high school, they taught everyone to type, and that was a rare skill in the Marine Corps. And so I became a clerk. Okay. And so I had 4 weeks of advanced infantry training. If you were a grunt or if you were an infantry Marine, you had 2 months. If you were motor pool or supply, you had 1 month. So I had 1 month of advanced infantry training. Then I had 1 month of clerk school. And then I went to Vietnam. And because I was a clerk, I was I served with the most elite fighting force of the Marine Corps called Third Force Recon because they needed a clerk. But when I got over there, the clerk the clerk at that time was leaving in a month, and he kind of helped me train. But my second day in country, the commanding officer, Major Lee, told me that I could go on patrols if I wanted to, but it was my choice because I was not a grunt. I was not an infantry Marine, you know. So that started training. And the head clerk, the officer, he didn't want to go in the bush. He didn't want to fight anybody. He wanted to stay in the office, but he didn't mind me doing other things. So I went to a week-long school right outside of Dong Ha, advanced infantry training for Marines. 3 months later, they sent me to Okinawa. I went to Army jump school and learned how to jump out of perfectly functioning airplanes. There was training every day, everything how to deal with leeches, to booby traps, what to wear. There was training every day. I did work in the office some. I scuba dived rivers and rappelled, and but I had 10 to 12 patrols under my belt, and patrols an average of 5 days in the jungle, just the six of us.
Why did you volunteer for to going out with Third Force Recon? I mean, you could have stayed in the relative safety
Right.
where you were doing the work as a clerk. So why did you volunteer to go out?
I don't really know. I mean, I remember the day talking to the officer, talking to the Major Lee, and like I said, okay, I'll give it one patrol and let's see how it works. Let's see how it goes. And that's what I told him. So then they got me ready, and all the other guys kind of helped. I'll say one thing though, you know, like I said, I had 1 month of advanced infantry training. Most infantry or grunt Marines had 2 months, but then recon Marines, they probably had another month or 2 months of additional training after that. So, I mean, I ran patrols. Anybody that went over there with them had an opportunity to run patrols. So there was a supply guy that had 4 or 5 patrols under his belt. But we didn't go on really advanced type of patrols. Like we didn't go on prisoner snatches or into Laos or anything like that. The patrols that I went on, and they were all in different areas, but were usually just to find the enemy, to call in airstrikes. Force is the elite of the recon. There was Company A, Company B, Company C, no D, and F, and so there was 4 companies and then Force, and we were all, barbed wire all around our area. No civilians were in our area. We did everything ourselves. It was very, very secure, which was very different than other companies.
Yeah. So my assumption coming in then, so Third Force Reconnaissance Company. So then, just based on what I've learned talking to other vets, then you're not going out on search and destroy primarily, or even really much at all. Primarily, you're going out looking for the enemy, not really even looking to get into a fight, just putting eyes on the enemy.
Right, exactly.
Call in fire support, or
Yes, exactly.
call in fire
Yeah.
on them.
Yeah, there was only 6 of us out all by ourselves, but we had incredible backup. I mean, we had incoming. We had backup one time from the New Jersey that threw some rounds for us up into the DMC. We always had priority over infantry because there was only 6 of us. But our job was to find. Our job would sneak around. They taught us how to walk quietly. Our gear made no noise at all, but I didn't have a real fancy job. I never walked point. I never was tailing Charlie. I was just in the middle. One time I carried the radio, but I wasn't the radio operator. But anyway, So that's all we did. We'd sit in areas and watch where there was enemies that's supposed to be in the area. If they weren't there, then we walk some more and we look for signs and we try to find them. When we found them, we would call in, you know, whatever was available, cannon fire, air, you know, from a fire base.
And I'm assuming you're in northern I Corps, Dongha, Quang going out to the rock pile, etc. So I'm assuming
Right.
up there you're dealing overwhelmingly with NVA.
NVA. Yeah. Yeah. NVA. There was only one time really we saw VC, and there was an NVA camp that was really buried in bamboo and underground. And they trained VC, and the VC ran the patrols, and that was one of my last patrols into that area, and that got pretty hairy. But and that was down south of a little north of Quang Tree.
Well, when you say this patrol where you found this VC installation, if I can use that word,
Yeah,
it got a little hairy. What do you mean by that?
the mission, there was 6 of us, and we were down there, and we were supposed to find entries into this area that there was supposed to be this VC training camp, and and then we were supposed to call, and then we'd call in the Arvins. There was a company of Arvins that were waiting, and then they were going to go in and attack the base and things like that. Okay. Um, so we sat in an area, and I remember we would go out on like 3-man patrols at night, and we would see activity, we would see lights. There was a lot of activity around the place. Um, and then and we did locate some entrances, and we did call in the Arvins, and they went in, and that, so anyway, that's kind of been, and I did carry an M60 machine gun on that patrol. I carried M60 my last 3 patrols.
When the Arvin came in, then did a firefight ensue?
Yes, the Arvins went into their area and really overtook it, and there was a lot of prisoners. They brought out the prisoners. That was, I remember, I'm getting real nervous now because I had a breakdown after that patrol, and because there was, they brought them out, and they a lot of them were tortured. They stacked up bodies and shot them, and
You you
yeah,
you you write about this, and so
yeah, I did.
I think what you're saying is, as you Marines are looking on, or at least you're aware of what's going on, these Arvin forces go into where these Viet Cong are, they capture a lot of them, and then they proceed to abuse, torture, and
Right,
murder
exactly.
the Viet Cong.
Yeah, they killed a lot of them inside, and then none of our one of our guys was hit, or 2 of them were hit, but nothing serious. But anyway, yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Now, is this something that you heard but didn't see? Is it something that you didn't see or hear but just heard about, or are you witnessing this?
No, I was there. I was there. Like I said, I carried an M60 machine gun, and our job when the Arvins went in, our team was kind of split up and around watching for anyone trying to escape. And then once they took over inside, it took about an hour and a half. I remember hearing a lot of fire inside, and then they started dragging out bodies, and they were bringing out prisoners, and then over the next hour or so, they just killed everybody and stacked them up in piles, and then a couple hours later, we all left. They went back. We flew back with them in the choppers.
Um, so this is one of those questions where, might be a stupid question, and I mean, it's a very long time ago as well. But as you're watching this unfold, and this doesn't sound like this is something that just happens in an instant, but it's kind of something that unfolds over an hour or longer.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
what kinds of thoughts are going through your mind as you're seeing this?
um, everything. I just remember hoping that the Arvins, like, they took their time getting there. They were really laid back and weren't ready when they come out of the helicopter. There's 3 helicopters. There's, I guess, the CH, the Q, not the QEs, but the big cargo
The,
planes.
the 46?
Yeah, the 46s. And they came out and they're talking, laughing, smoking cigarettes with their rifles down. And they wanted us to be point. They said we needed to go in first. And we had a lieutenant as a squad leader. And of course, there was a lot of yelling and screaming. There was a guy with us that could speak partly Vietnamese. And so finally it was decided that they would go in first and we'd be security and we would just kind of watch for anybody coming out. So that's how it started. My feelings, it was okay until they started dragging these prisoners out and you know, they stacked them up, they were peeing on them, they were bayoneting them and they were shooting them. And a lot of our guys, they just I just I remember I was sitting there with my machine gun and I was holding it so tight that my hands hurt. And we just all kind of stayed together after that, and we just wanting and waiting for everything to get over. So so all of my feeling, and I mean, I had a breakdown. I went back and I told the commanding officer that I didn't want to run any more patrols, and then we got incoming within a couple nights in our area of 122 rockets, and about 6 guys were killed. And I just decided that it wasn't any safer staying in the rear area, so I finished my tour over there with a couple more patrols.
Did the Marine officer or any of the other Marines, or when you initially told your officer, I don't want to do any more patrols, although you do actually end up doing more, did you report what the Arvins had done?
Yeah, it had been reported, and I mean, I don't know, I wasn't savvy to that kind of communication, but I remember being in the office and the major coming in and talking to me, and I couldn't talk. I was getting real nervous. I was looking at the floor. I told him I didn't want to do anymore. And he called me back into the back of the hut, into his little office there. And he told me there was a lot of new guys, and if I could just hang in there for a little bit, and I was shaking and nervous, and I, and that's that night. He said he understood. He didn't want me going on patrol and jeopardizing anything. And he just told me to relax. I had guard duty that night. And that's when we got the incoming, and then everything changed. Everything changed after that. But he was understanding, but he didn't say. We were just real short. All other recon except Force moved out of South Vietnam. We were the only, about 90 guys at that time. We're the only ones in the I-Corps area. The only, besides I think the 101st were there, but they're only Marines.
So I want to come back and ask you just about even just the time period that we're talking about now. But you just said a minute ago that everything changed after this. You're talking with this major. What do you mean by that? Everything changed?
Well, everything had changed earlier, and I'm not sure when, but recon moved out, and probably other Marines, all Marines moved out of northern I-Corps area except Force. And I'm not sure, I don't really remember when that was, okay? But that's what he was saying that had been going on. But that's what he was saying, why, if you can, I remember saying, we need you to help until we get new guys trained, maybe 1, maybe 2 more patrols. And I told him I didn't want to do it. I didn't think I could, but he put me on guard duty and helping in the mess hall for a couple of days and told me to think about it. And then we got the incoming.
And you concluded being here is no safer than being out in the field, so I'll just go out in the field.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Rockets came in. My best friend was killed that night, and I just remember thinking, no reason to stay in the rear. At least going out, that you had a chance to do something You know, you might get killed, but your guys were getting killed in the rear area too. At least they're go out, you might, you know, make things harder on the enemy and disrupt their lines and, you know, put them on the defensive.
So just to back up, when did you actually arrive in Vietnam?
February of, yeah, February of 69.
February of 69. Did you fly in commercial?
Yes, flew in commercial. This is a funny story. I flew in commercial on like Continental Airlines, and there were stewardesses.
Right.
And I was thinking, riding over there, riding over there, hey, Da Nang must be a pretty safe place, you know, to have stewardesses in a commercial airline landing. There was about 70 guys on the plane and a few ladies, probably nurses or something. And it was very memorable. I you know, there's a thing you asked me about landing in Da Nang, what it was, or landing and what it was like and stuff. Got off the plane, all 70 of us all bunched together, we're walking. But as soon as it come off that plane, I mean, there was F-4 Phantoms taking off, going straight up in the air with afterburners kicking in, helicopters everywhere, like Quonset huts with rockets and missiles all stacked up inside, guys driving little trucks and trains with all kinds of ammunition, you know, bales and bales of rounds, you know,
Ordnance?
machine gun round, yeah, just ordnance, everything, and busy place, sandbags everywhere. All the buildings were like 1 story or 2 story at the most, wood with sandbags piled up everywhere, blast walls. And we checked in, and I would have stopped and looked around, but we were a moving body, and we went into this big building, and there was different places to go. And I stood in line for the Marines and talked to this guy, and he gave him my orders. And my next thing, I was to be in Da Nang one night and go 100 miles north to Dong Ha. Okay, the next day. And so, and here's the thing. This is my welcome to Vietnam. 90 minutes later, I was walking between two buildings. Okay, and the world exploded. 122 millimeter rockets came in, a bunch of them, hit all around us. I stood there as buildings. I was in between buildings, and so I was safe. But there were explosions. Everything was. I could hear, even with the explosion, I could hear the shot going by me like this. And I just remember hugging a blast wall and just shaking and not thinking, not being able to comprehend what was going on. And then the incoming stopped, and my heart rate was going 1,000,000 miles an hour, and I was breathing, I was hyperventilating. And then all of a sudden I realized this happened in my 90 minutes in Vietnam, and I was to be here a year. And I said to myself, I remember thinking, there's no way I will live through this. And I absolutely was confident. I was sure that I would die here. And I relaxed. I wasn't brave or anything, but I just said, you know what? There's nothing I can do about this. And so I just wanted to try to be a good Marine and do the best I could and live as long as I could. And that thought did not change till about maybe 4 or 5 months later, when I realized, hey, you don't get incoming every day, you know? So that was my welcome to Vietnam. 90 minutes. 4 guys I came over with were killed. Almost my whole tour was just confusion. You know, it's just, I wasn't a leader. You know, I just, all I wanted to do is try to do the best I could to help out my team and people around me, and to live as long as possible. That's all my thought. I never had a conscious thought of, why is this happening, or what are we doing here? Things like that. You know, it's just, I was so scared my whole time over there, all the time. Okay, I mean, it did get better as I got more used to it, but I just remember, you know, trying not to do anything stupid, and live as long as I could, and not let any teammates down.
So I think you kind of answered this question, and you've said something that I've heard so many times, where veterans say, I didn't think about the politics of the war. I wasn't asking big questions. I wasn't thinking deep thoughts. I was just very focused on what was right in front of me. It was me and the Marine next to me. That was pretty much the whole.
That's exactly right. That's, for me, that was right. Now, maybe someone that maybe had some college behind them, or more of a, you know, a worldly guy, you know, maybe had thoughts like that. But me, no. We did not have electricity. We did not. We had uh, water flown in big 55-gallon buckets. Electricity with generators. We didn't have a shower. We had a big uh, uh, fuselage for an airplane filled with our water. So I mean, it was hugely basic. You know, we had a brown cot. That was all that we were given, an old brown army cot. You know, and there was about 8 of us in this wood hut. So things were
Yeah.
extremely basic.
When you went out on these reconnaissance patrols, how long would you go out for? 3 or 4 days at a time usually, or?
Usually an average of 5. Okay. Um, Sometimes during the monsoons, one time we got stuck out there, the birds wouldn't fly unless it was an emergency. We were out 8 days, but we usually carried stuff for 5. Um, we carried around 60 to 70 pounds of gear on our back. Okay. Um, and when I carried the M60, that was another 22 pounds.
Wow.
So there was a lot of weight. Anyway, we were by ourselves, but like I said earlier, we were a prime we were a primary focus on any, if we needed help, we would get it way over infantry.
Like if you need to call in fire support.
Yeah, if we needed airstrikes or get pulled out, we needed medevacs and stuff like that.
So there in Northern I Corps, I'm thinking, set the North Vietnamese aside and the Viet Cong, put them aside.
Uh-huh.
The other challenges you're dealing with, I'm thinking elephant grass, leeches, snakes, mosquitoes. You're wet all the time, either you're getting rained on or you're sweating constantly.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
what am I missing? All of the things that make you miserable in Vietnam, in addition to the enemy.
Uh, what you named was, I mean, that was pretty much right on, you know. And let me put it this way, that when I first got over there and I did that week school, at 5 days school right outside of Dong Hall with recon, and it was like how to read a map and running patrols. It was a fairly secure area, but there was still security there. Okay, it was a large tract of land, um, but it was not part of the base, so there was still security there, and we were careful. Um, and I just remember we were out 3 days and they had 2 days of classroom, and I just remember how miserable I was, sleeping on hard ground and eating sea rats and, you know, and stuff. I couldn't wait for it to get over. Then I ran actual patrols, I had no feelings like that at all. Nothing felt like, oh God, I can't sleep, or oh, it's so hot. My whole thought was just don't let the don't let the team down and don't die. That was it. That was the focus of my attention over there. And it got better as I got more experience, but I can't emphasize too much the fear and the, for me anyway,
Don't let the team down and don't die.
don't die. That
And
was it. So
yeah,
when he asked me, did you think about this or what did you think about that? That's all. That was my primary thought, my
well,
consciousness over there.
that's what I was gonna say. That you know, yeah. And how old were you at this time? 19 or 20?
19, just turned 19, with 6 guys. Point man had, and we not right behind each other. We were staggered a little bit to cover different areas. Okay, but we wore we wore gloves with the mittens with the ends cut off, so our hands were okay. We always wore long sleeves.
Mm.
All right,
And
so
the elephant grass will cut you.
we wore long sleeves, period, all the time. I know I see pictures of guys with short sleeves, but we wore long because of leeches and mosquitoes and stuff. We rarely used repellent because it smelled. That's the difference of recon. You know, you'd rather get bit by mosquitoes than shot. Okay. So you only use that kind of stuff or smoked a cigarette when you were in a secure area. All right. We never wore ponchos at night. Well, at ponchos we did. We didn't wear ponchos on, we didn't wear rain gear during the monsoons. It made too much noise. We'd be inserted into an area with, and the squad leader would know where we were supposed to go. Sometimes we were to go to where there was an enemy that had been seen or predicted to be there, or to support. One time we had to go to a fire base to help support a fire base. And to get from point A to point B, if it was loaded up north, if it was loaded with elephant grass or steep hills or down there, that you still went. I mean, you could walk around some of it, but when you had an acre and an acre and a half, acre and an acre and a half of elephant grass, I mean, you walk through it.
And now you've got long sleeves, so but I'm imagining your face is it cutting up your face and your fingers?
Yeah, and
as
we
you're
would
walking through?
wear, we had everything was camouflage. We were camouflage cloths around our necks, and we'd cover up our face. But you know, I mean, but there was open areas too. It's not like we walked through elephant grass, you
Right.
know, but it was sharp, but
Yeah.
mainly just bugs, the bugs, like you said, and the leeches at night. We in the mornings we would check each other's back. You check your shoes or your boots, you know, you check your feet and each other's back for leeches. Uh, you know, so,
And
and sometimes they were real bad.
you get them off with the but you don't want to light a cigarette though, right? To get the leeches
No,
off.
sometimes you chew a cigarette and spit on them. You know, you didn't pull them off, that's for sure. Um, I'm
But
trying to think now. I think mainly you chew it. Oh, we had some stuff. We had a little cream. We carried cream that you could put on them and they would back out. But you know, here's the thing: like people would say, how could you deal with that? How again? That was way down the list of priorities. Okay, way down the list of priorities. It didn't matter if you had where leeches are. You just didn't want to walk into an ambush. You know, you didn't want to get killed. So, like I said, we took care of stuff in the mornings, but you know, like you
well,
had some guy. I know I've never experienced it, but guys, I mean, you'd get diarrhea over there, okay? And I've heard stories. You know, you can't stop and drop your drawers every 10 minutes. Guys would cut their green shorts off and split a thing in the back of their trousers and still be, you know, carrying their M16, looking around. And if they had to go, they just squatted and went.
wow.
You know, it's just it was so horrendous. You know.
And other recon vets I've spoken with said that they also, you know, when they're out, they're not walking at a normal pace. They're walking very slowly.
Yeah.
Was that the case with you guys?
Yeah, it depends on how much cover you had, where you're at, and things like that. But one of the things when I got over there, they taught you how to walk. You know, you walk from the outside top, you know, ball of your foot to your heel. You know, there was times where you had to be, where the most important thing was silence, okay, and movement, where you froze and tried not to be noticed. You know, was much more important than anything else. So they, you know, all our gear was tight, made no noise. And all that was in training before I went out.
Now your goal as recon is um to avoid firefights, generally speaking,
Yeah,
right? You just want to set eyes on
yes,
the enemy and then bring fire down on the enemy.
yes.
But did you
From
get
where I was at, there was other more complicated patrols, but for what I was at, that was the majority of my patrols. Just find the enemy.
did you ever get into situations though where a firefight was unavoidable?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we were ambushed once. I have to think. We ambushed a squad one time that was following us. Um, yeah, there was a couple of times. There was probably out of the 11 patrols, I would say maybe 6 or 7 we had some kind of contact.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, could you pick one of those and just kind of walk us through how that contact unfolded? Maybe the ambushing the NVA who are following you?
Okay, all right. We were in an area where we were trying to find activity where we could call in airstrikes. Okay. And every time we would see activity, but it was too far away. All right. It was too far away for us. Let me see. I have to think about this. All I remember is that every time we moved to every time we moved to an area where we thought would be better, then there was movement in a different area, which we were too far away. And why we didn't call it air strikes, I don't really remember. All I remember is that we did find and we ambushed a small squad and got out of there quickly. And we were traveling. This was up in the DMZ because there was arc lights around us. There was big holes, and we headed up that way. And we were on a hill, like as an OP observation post, looking around. And one of the guys noticed movement. We looked down. We found out that there was a fairly large contingency that had been following us, and they were looking at the ground, following our trails. And we kind of got off the hill. I was carrying the machine gun, and me and the blooper guy carrying the M79 and he had buckshot in there that time. We were set up. We went down and set up on the side, and we made contact first with them, and then the rest of them came down from the front. So we were hitting them from the side and the front. And anyway, there was contact, and we didn't kill them all, but we were able to get back away, and we got up into the DMZ pretty good, and we got into a big crater. We got incoming. They followed us. We were surrounded. If they had all come at us at the same time, we would have been in big trouble, but they didn't. We had some, we called in our artillery. Finally, we snuck out of there at night. We snuck out at night, and we made it out of there.
How long did that go on?
It was sporadic from the first time when we killed the small squad. We were out for 5 days, so it went on and on and off. We were trying to get away from the enemy. They were trying to follow us. We would ambush and get away, and then they surrounded it. They come up and surrounded us in a crater. And then we snuck out at night, which was very unusual because we didn't usually move at night. And once we got into a secure area, we called in for extraction. First time we called in, they couldn't do it. They were too busy, which was very unusual. But we finally got out of there, and I think that was either my last patrol or the second to the last. I just remember it was in vivid color, and I was walking across this open field, and there was a C-130 sideways to me with the engine, with the props barely moving, and there was some damage to it, but it was supposed to be taking me home. Okay, it's a dream. And I was walking toward it and incoming, and there wasn't buildings around or anything. I just remember that, but I just remembered the vivid green in the shrubbery, and the color of the decals on the plane. And incoming came in, and I tried incoming around the plane came in, and I was trying to run away, and something hit near me, and I was thrown to the ground. And I just remember looking up, and I was looking up, and the plane's propellers started going faster, and she started moving away a little bit, moving. And I just remember trying to get up, and I couldn't move. And I reached behind my back. My legs were not working. And I brought my hand out, and it was covered with blood. And I screamed. So I screamed and screamed at it to stop, to stop. And it flew away. And then I would wake up.
So trapped in Vietnam.
Yeah.
What do you remember about the trip home when your tour is done? Do you fly out of Da Nang again?
Yeah, flew out of Da Nang into Okinawa, and then all the way into San Diego. Okay. The only thing I really remember so much, you know, today, today they have all these kind of courses and classes for for soldiers and Marines that saw combat, you know, to get them back to normal and things like that, or try to. There was nothing for us. Okay, nothing that I remember. We had, you know, we had a medically we were checked and our teeth and stuff like that. You know, it took 4 days. By the time I got into Camp Pendleton to the time I had to leave was 4 days. And I don't remember one thing about, you know, well, how did, are you okay? How do you feel about Vietnam? Are you going to be all right? It was nothing like that, you know. And all I remember is thinking, I'm going home. That's all I remember thinking. Everything's okay. Everything's okay. I'm going home. And but I do remember crowds. I could not stand people around me. I was so nervous all the time. I had a girlfriend, and we ended up. She was at Purdue, and we went up. I drove up there, and we went to I think a football game or I think it was a football game. I had to leave after a few minutes. I couldn't stand anybody around me like that so close. So there were repercussions. There were things from Vietnam. Um, it was just such going from a war, you know, total not knowing you're going to how long you're going to live, and being afraid for your life and your partner's life, to being everything okay, you know, and everything normal. Just took a long time to and then going to college where we were spit on and called names, and you know, I grew my hair long and never told anybody that I was a Vietnam veteran. You know, I tried to fit in and did never talk about it.
Now, when you say when we were spit on, just meaning Vietnam veterans in general, or did you face some of that yourself?
We Yes, when when I left Camp Pendleton to go home for my first leave, you know, I was in dress browns and have a small little suitcase, and walking through the airport, I was by myself. A lot of military guys, they were stationed around that area, so they weren't in uniform. But as you got into the busy part of the airport, I saw, like, I say hippies, but you know, blah blah whatever. But there were people. They were. Then I started getting yelled at. You know, baby killer. I remember some yelling baby killer. You know, and things like that. Just guys coming up. But anyway, some guy came up to me and spit on the side of my face, and we and I hit him, and then he went down. I hit him a couple more times, and then I got up and I was grabbed from behind, and it was by the MPs there or a policeman or something like that, and I ended up in the airport jail. It was MP because the guy I talked to was from Army, and he had been over in Vietnam the year before, and we talked a lot, and he kind of got me out of there. What the guy I that held me behind. I had kicked him in the leg, at the back of the leg, and scraped his leg, and he let me go. And so I was there about a year. An hour or 2 hours, and I missed my flight, but I waited and got another one. So that was my experience. Later coming in, I got screamed at and yelled at and stuff, but nothing as bad as that.
When I've talked to other vets who have a similar experience, one case I remember I said, "Well, what did you do when that guy spit on you?" In this case, he said he's kind of the spit landed, here. He said, "I didn't do anything. I just looked at him and then walked off." Um,
I think
I
since
mean,
he spit in my face, I couldn't do that, and he was right there.
yeah, and to be honest with you, I mean, I'm just interested in your reaction to this. I was wondering, okay, well, so is John going to say that he just walked away? And when you say that you decked him not only once, but you decked him multiple
I
times,
went down on him.
honestly, my thought was, good, I'm glad.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
I
if
didn't
that
think
guy,
about it. It wasn't I tried to do it or wanted. I just he was right there. He spit on me, and I just went down and beat the crap out of him, you know, without even thinking. I've been in the airport the last 20, 30 years. and troops who were coming back from Afghanistan, in uniform, or, jungle utilities and stuff. They'd be coming in as a group, and everybody stop and clap, shake their hand and stuff. And I did too. I yelled for them, but I was yelling for me too. I'm sorry. I was yelling for us.
Welcome home.
Thank you.